The letter which I will be discussing today is a personal letter from Donald Stevens to Lee Kuan Yew, dated the 10th of August 1965, after Singapore had been removed from Malaysia by Tunku Abdul Rahman and the Malaysian Parliament. Now, this letter was released a number of years ago by the family of Donald Stevens on social media. I will quote certain sections of the letter, but I will make the letter available in the link below if you wish to download the letter to read it for yourself. I was not even consulted about its break, merely presented with a fait accompli. I feel like death, tears, heartbreak, and completely lost and betrayed. Never in my wildest dreams did I see this happening. Quarrels, yes, even riots, but a complete break? Never. Years of hard work, uphill and downhill, selling the idea of Malaysia to my people. Blood, sweat and tears and success, and now this. I could have got Sabah and Sarawak to work together to see that the Break Malaysia Bill failed to get through. Did you give a thought to the thousands, millions in Malaysia who looked up to you, believed in you? Did you give a little thought to all those who were working for the ideals you proposed? A Malaysian Malaysia. And so the letter is the basis of today's podcast and discussion. The video I've shared in the link above, North Borneo Merger Mystery Unveiled by Tunku, which is based on the last interviews with Tunku before he passed away with the journalist Patrick Keith. Tunku clearly states why he decided to remove Singapore from Malaysia and who, in the end, made the ultimate decision to remove Singapore from Malaysia, and that was him. Now, it is an internal UMNO decision to get rid of the People's Action Party, or PAP, from Malaysia. The PAP has been playing a very dangerous game since 1961 with regards to allowing the Alliance Party, which was a political coalition in Malaysia, which consisted of UMNO, or the United Malays National Organization, MCA, or the Malaysian Chinese Association, and MIC, or the Malaysian Indian Congress, to stand for elections in Singapore to challenge the Communist Party, which had aspirations to take control of Singapore in 1961 elections in Singapore. The PAP was in danger of losing control of Singapore to the Communist Party, and it was essentially the Alliance Party who came to the rescue of the PAP in that 1961 elections by providing financial assistance for the PAP election campaign, as well as the much needed votes to ensure that the Communist Party did not have the numbers to win the elections and to take control of Singapore. This was a very big worry at that time, and so some sort of a relationship existed where they worked together, collaborated to ensure the Communist Party could not win. But having said that, there was a price to pay. The PAP had essentially let the Alliance Party into its backyard politically, and later when elections were to come around again, the relationships between both sides had soured so badly. It was already at that stage of communal disenchantment, communal unhappiness with policies of the PAP in Singapore, also partly due to political interferences within the island by the Alliance Party. Now, I am unsure if Tunku supported these political undercurrents, but if we look at what transpired in 1969, Tunku was forced to resign due to similar political and communal unrest. It is very doubtful Tunku supported these actions at the lowest levels of society, where people were enticed to challenge the PAP through protests and riots. It is doubtful that Tunku encouraged these communal disagreements, communal disenchantments. It was other politicians that were possibly encouraging it. The PAP themselves are no angels. They made strategic mistakes by attempting to stand for elections and to win seats in Malaya, which greatly upset the Alliance Party. The PAP in the end lost all the seats that they stood for within Malaysia for the elections, but they won one seat. But the trouble is they had damaged the relationship, the fragile relationship that they had. If you were a political leader in MCA, the Malaysian Chinese Association, would you have been happy that the PAP were trying to represent a certain demographic of society and had stood for elections in your backyard and had attempted to possibly replace you? As an MCA leader, you probably would have been very unhappy and probably would have been suggesting to Tunku Abdul Rahman that, PAP can't do this. They cannot be coming into Malaya and standing for elections because it is causing problems within. Now, many have suggested it was a political decision, a strategic political decision to stand for elections in Malaya by the PAP, and it backfired. But again, we must remember that there are many other problems going on at the ground level. There's very tense situations within communities due to disagreements and political interferences, and it was perhaps inevitable that Tunku realized this was simply not going to work as long as PAP and Lee Kuan Yew were part of Malaysia. And so the decision was made by Tunku and the inner circle to remove Singapore from Malaysia. Now, the letter written by Donald Stevens, it has a lot of regret, it has a lot of disappointment between the two men who had formed a close bond in the years leading up to the formation and the merger of Malaysia. But I would suggest these feelings are misplaced. Lee Kuan Yew had no way of stopping what was to happen, which was the removal as partner in Malaysia. In the end, Stevens himself got removed as chief minister by Tunku, when Tunku realized that Stevens and UPCO were causing a lot of problems directly and indirectly to the federal government, and they were challenging the status quo of being a partner in Malaysia. You have to remember that Stevens also within Sabah had made enemies, political enemies with former allies, which includes Tun Mustafa and Usno. Stevens had also lost the confidence of the Chinese political parties in Sabah as well, through a series of horrible political decisions that he and UPCO had made before and after the merger to form Malaysia. And so, did Donald Stevens have justification to be upset with Lee Kuan Yew for abandoning Sabah and Sarawak? No, because there was nothing Lee Kuan Yew could have done to prevent it from happening. But could you blame Lee Kuan Yew for strategic political mistakes that the PAP did? For example, standing for elections in Malaya and antagonizing the Alliance Party. Yes, you can. Because in the end, it probably was the key decision that brought about their removal from Malaysia. And that could be what Stevens is referring to. But in the end, Stevens and UPCO do exactly the same thing. And Stevens himself is removed as chief minister.
Mr. Prime Minister, after these momentous pronouncements,
and I'd like to add one. You see, this is a moment of, every time we look back on this moment when we signed this agreement which severed Singapore from Malaysia, it will be a moment of anguish. I mean, for me, it is a moment of anguish because all my life you see, the whole of my adult life I had believed in Malaysian merger and the unity of these two territories. It's people connected by geography, economics, and ties of kinship. Would you mind if we stop for a while? We are out, but we will still do it. And I asked the Malays, don't worry. This was the government that believed in multiracialism and brought Singapore away from chauvinism into multiracialism. Pity. It turned out that we could not achieve multiracialism and integration in Malaysia.